welcome if it's your first time here. My name is Andrew, and I am a co-founder at SimpleStack. And today we are looking at how we can use an Airtable base and create a mobile experience on top of that Airtable base where users can see information, update information, all from their cell phone in a beautiful app. So if you're wondering how you can create something that looks as amazing as this, you're in the right place. And we're going to be going through a field services demo here. Thinking about this, like imagining that we are a landscaper that has many techs who are out in the field completing services at different property locations. And we need a way in the back office to schedule jobs, and for people in the field, they need a way to easily see information where they're going from their phone, update that information, see a map of where they've got to go next, etc. Okay? So stick with me. This is going to be a little longer than normal because we're going to sort of build this from scratch. We're going to do a back office tool as an Airtable interface, and then we're going to do the field app on Glide, which is going to be on top. So they're going to be integrated together, writing back and forth. It's going to be a beautiful thing. So hopefully you stick around. So let's jump into it. Let's first talk about the Airtable setup that we have. Fairly straightforward. It's 4 tables. We've got properties, contact, schedule, and field crew. Okay, so the properties are essentially where the jobs take place. And when we schedule things, those are the areas or the locations that we're going to. Our first field is a concatenation of the street, city, state, and zip. There is owner information, which links to the contacts table that has phone and email information for the owner. We're linking out to schedules. We have weekly and monthly service that's available. And we've also got a few fields here. A number field that helps us schedule jobs out into the future in batching instead of having to do it manually. We do that through a script. I am going to link out to the script. I'll also show you how it works in real time here as we build it out. We've got a start date. So this is when the first date is of service. And a generate jobs checkbox. This is going to be used to trigger an automation. On the contacts table, we're keeping it simple with owner information, just the basics. If they have multiple properties, we will tag multiple properties here. The schedule, okay, this has a record for each schedule. It's unique to a property and date combination. We'll always only have one property and one date, and you'll see that we schedule these out. Okay, these have statuses. These statuses can be updated by the field reps, and they are defaulting to scheduled when they're created. We also have the ability to assign someone to a job, and that is linking to our field crew table, which has the names and email addresses of those folks that we would be scheduling. Now also keep in mind we're going to use this table as the table that tells Glide who the users of the app are. Okay, so when someone new signs up, they will be created in this table, and so in that way we can manage it all from our Airtable without having to leave. Okay, so the very first thing that we want to do is create a really quick back office interface that allows us to see and schedule jobs. Now, of course, we would want to be able to do things like invoicing and all of that kind of stuff. We're going to have a part 2 on this where we will cover invoicing, we'll cover being able to see sort of a all jobs schedule and some of those other really great items that are going to be required for a use case like this. Right now, we're just going to focus on being able to do it for a single property. In other words, being able to generate many jobs for a property, assign those jobs out, and get updates from the field rep on those jobs. Okay, not dipping into invoicing or a master calendar or anything like that across all jobs yet. So I'm going to jump into interfaces. Now, if you haven't used interfaces yet, basically what they allow you to do is create a page of a subset of your database. We were just looking at the sort of back end of the database, right? And so for users, when we think about workflow, it's easier to interact with a page as opposed to like a spreadsheet that can get kind of messy, right? We're going to call this the back office interface, and you'll notice that in the selection process, we've got a couple of layouts that we can sort of choose how we want to see this information, whether that's more visually like in a dashboard or a timeline, or in a list similar to like a spreadsheet. We're going to use a list because we're going to keep this simple up front, and we're going to choose the property table. Okay, so you'll see it automatically brings some information in here to our list, and I can edit the information that we're showing here on the right hand side. So this is sort of the interface editor, and I can go ahead and show additional fields that exist. So for this, I'm just going to show one more field, which is going to be the zip code. And I also want the back office to be able to edit these records or create new properties right here by just adding to the list. So we're going to publish that. So this would give us a list of all of the properties in the system, okay? And I also want to be able to click into these properties to do some of the job scheduling and additional detail. Now I can choose the page style, whether I like the half page or the full page. I like the full page for this, and I'm also going to toggle comments off so that we use up less white space. Okay. Now each of these represents a field that was in our table. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is just remove the schedule field. We're going to get back to that in a moment. And you'll see that we currently have all of these fields in a single grouping. That's what's highlighted here in blue. So when you hover over it and you see that, that means you're at the group level, versus if you hover over just a field, you'll be on the field level. Okay? And when you click on these things, you will see the configuration options on the right hand side here. So I could automatically allow for all of these fields that are in this grouping to be editable by selecting editable. Okay? And I can change the way the owner shows up. Instead of showing as a card, I can show as a pill, which consolidates the information a little bit, which is nice. So that information can be tagged. And the more I think about this, the more I kind of want two sections. So I can create a title for the first section. This is going to be called property information. And I'm going to give this a background color of gray. And if I hover here, I can add another group. So I'm going to add a new group here, and this is going to be called scheduled jobs. And I'm going to drag a few of these fields that are going to be required to schedule jobs down into this area here. I'm going to remove the generate jobs entirely, and I'm going to give this a background color of gray as well. So we have at this point two sections that we can edit fields in. One is called property information. This has the general property information. And one is more geared towards the scheduling of jobs. Okay. So the third section that we want is to see all of the jobs that have been created for a property. Okay, so we're going to create a third section to do that. And this is going to involve the linked record to the schedule. So if you don't know what linked records are, you're going to want to see some of the other content I've put out for what those are. But essentially it's two tabs or tables relating information together. Okay, so when these jobs get created, they get tagged to this property, and that's how come they show up here. Okay. Now, it's going to default to showing us these in sort of this card view, but we can actually turn this into a view. And if we click on the list that's now highlighted in blue, we can edit the fields that show up here. Okay, so you can see that here in our editor. We already know the property we are on, and so we may not need to see that. We probably want to see the date, the job notes, and then maybe the status, okay? And so I'm just configuring all of that here. Maybe the status could be the first field. date of the job, and we can adjust our widths here directly in the list, date of the job, and then the notes. We'll also probably want to know who's going to be assigned, so if I click this little blue plus, I can add in one of the fields that exists on the table, so that's going to be the assignee. We want to be able to edit this information and maybe add or delete jobs if the schedule needs to change, okay? And then finally, let's sort all of this by the date, okay? So now we've got a great little section here that shows us the schedule. Okay. So as these jobs get completed in the app, they can tell us, we can see them get updated here. We'll see their notes as well. And this is a nice little area for us to keep up to date with what's going on. Okay, the final part of this back office build is to be able to specify a number of jobs for a given type. So I want to be able to come in here and tell the system, hey, I've got a weekly customer that I want you to schedule 30 jobs for. And the first job should start on the 13th of May. I want it to actually go through, I want to click a button and I want it to generate all of those jobs, okay? So I'm going to show you. We're going to do this through an automation and a script within the automation action. I'll tell you more about that in a moment, but the very first thing we need to do from a UI perspective is give ourselves a button. Now the reason why we separated these into sections is the most likely time when I want to press that button is when I've filled these 3 fields out. I'm going to keep them empty for now, for when we come back to test it. But if I click on this entire grouping, you'll see that I can access a user action, which is the button. And there's a lot of options here. You can go to a URL, you can run an automation. What we're going to do is update a record. Now you'll remember one of the fields we had was a checkbox. And so when someone clicks this button, what we want to do is we want to move that to checked, okay? Because the trigger that I'm using on the automation looks for records that get that check mark, okay? Now, you may be wondering, well, why don't you just run an automation? Because that's one of the options here. I can just run an automation. That's true, you could, but you can't show state changes to the user. So what's nice about using the update record feature is that when an item is checked, for instance, it's going to show a different message in color, okay? And then we can reset that so that it can be used again, but it's giving that feedback to the user, and it's making it a more usable application. So we're going to give this a name, which is generate schedule. The starting color is going to be black, and the ending color will be green, and it will say generated, okay? So that's what that will look like when it has been generated. So I'm going to go ahead and publish that. Okay, so we've generated a bunch of jobs here. Now, let me show you how you configure this automation. If you come up here and go into edit mode and jump over to automations, and if you're new to automations, they start with a trigger and then they have an action. So it's pretty simple, sort of if-then logic. Now you can do all sorts of complicated things, but the basic foundations are if-then, okay? And so the trigger that we're using is when a record matches conditions. As I mentioned, you're going to select your table as properties, and then you're going to select generate jobs is checked. So when we go to choose a record, it will pull up all of the records where that's the case for testing. I'm going to link this script. Basically what happens when it triggers is it's going to run this script, and this script looks at a combination of the service type, the number that we put in, and the start date, and it generates schedules out into the future. Okay, so it's really handy and a big time saver in this case. Okay, now I want to show you how this is going to feel to the user, and so what I'm going to do is just delete the existing schedule items we have. So let's imagine that as a user for the very first time, I'm coming into 172 Tivoli Way and I'm going through the workflow of creating the schedule. So the first thing that I'm going to do, you'll see we don't have any scheduled items. I'm going to select the service, which I'm going to say is weekly. We're going to do 8 jobs, and we're going to start. The first one is going to be on the 13th today. Okay. Now I'm going to click on Generate Schedule. And those scheduled items are going to fall into here in real time, as you can see. Okay, so these are scheduled 1 week apart, all the way out. Now, as the back office manager, I can start assigning the user. Okay. Now, you might be assigning different users, who knows? But I've now assigned these jobs out, everything's scheduled and assigned. Now, if I need to add one-off jobs, I can. But we've got a really good back office system here that allows us to create those jobs and to schedule them. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to switch over and we're going to integrate this into building of a front-end mobile app on Glide so that our field users can see this information and update this information, such as the job notes and the status, okay? Or know where they're going. It's going to be important, okay? So if you've never been in Glide before, go ahead and create a free account. And the very first thing you're going to do, you're going to kind of land on a screen like that looks like this. You're going to create a new application. This is going to be Field Services Example. We're going to start in mobile. You can start with Glide Tables, which is an internal database to Glide, or you can do a Google Sheet or Excel. Please don't do a Google Sheet or Excel. Those aren't databases. Definitely stick with Airtable or Glide Tables, much better. And once you've connected your Airtable, it'll help you do that very quickly. Just give it access to the workspace. Then you're going to search for your base, okay? So ours is this field service example, so I'm going to create an app from that. Now, it's going to do its best job to throw a bunch of our data schema into a mobile app. It's going to get a lot wrong, and that's okay. It's just pulling together sort of something for you to click around in and understand how the data works. But it's split into 3 layers, and I want to talk about those layers really quickly. Okay, so at the top here, you've got your data, which is your back end. So these are the same property or same tables from our Airtable base. They have the same information. They're synced, so when update happens in Glide, it pushes to Airtable and vice versa. And then it automatically created a user table. Now, this is specific to Glide, and actually we're going to be using Field Crew as our user table, but I'll show you how to adjust that when we get to that part of the system, okay? So that's the first level, which is the data. Then there's the layout, which allows us to visually design. And on the left-hand side, you're going to see navigation. These represent the buttons on the bottom here. You're going to see menu, which represents this hamburger menu, a user profile. And then collection is the actual data on the screen. Okay, so we're going to start editing some of this information in a moment. The configuration, for instance, for the page, if you click on the page, you're going to be able to configure all of the page level data here. If you click on the collection, you can configure the collection here on the right. So your configuration options are always on the right, and sort of your navigation options are here on the left for what you're looking at. Okay. Finally, there's an area called Actions, which is really similar to what we just did with Airtable automations. We won't be covering that in this one, but this would allow you to do integrations or notifications from like Twilio, texting, all of that kind of stuff. And a lot of really good built-in automation that you can build with that. Once you have your basic connection up and running, you want to think about how the users are going to interact. And for us, we're showing a bunch of navigation that they don't need. So the properties table will keep Field Crew. This is just going to be a list of our field users, so we don't need to show that. I'm going to hide it. And same thing with contacts. I don't want to show contacts. Okay. So the only thing that they're going to see are properties and the schedule. And we can change the logo here. So properties will be a home icon and schedule will be a calendar icon. Seems small, but from a user's perspective, it really helps to navigate the app. So let's first configure the properties screen. So on the page, I don't want them adding new properties or editing properties, so I'm going to toggle those things off. And I already have the full address, so I don't like that description. By clicking on custom, it will pull it out. And then for the meta gives you a little bit of a color, and it's kind of nice. So we're going to do meta. What we want to do for meta is the service that they purchased with us. So this is a weekly customer. You can see that drop in there. We'll keep the search bar because this could be helpful searching all the properties. And then we're also going to click on the collection here. And we are going to go to options, and we're going to sort the data by the full address, okay, so that it's always in alphabetical order. So that's a pretty good start here. A user can click in now to this property, and we're going to configure this property details page, but they would see a list of all properties that's searchable. Okay. Now for this, we want to edit some of the way this is set up. So you'll see that if I hover on the left here with these components, that it highlights the different areas, right? So the first thing is in the title, it's kind of strange. It repeats the address twice, and it allows for an edit button, and I don't want anyone editing this from the app in the field. So this edit action is going to be removed by clicking down here on the bottom right. So that gets rid of that. And then the subtitle, we're just going to set to custom, so it's not going to show as a subtitle. Okay. And maybe what we'd want to do on the emphasis, similar to meta like we were talking about earlier, is pull in the service. So you can see this is a weekly customer. Now editing the fields, making sure that we're showing the ones that we want. Maybe we only show the city, state, the zip code. We probably don't need any of that information really. Maybe we show the number of jobs and when they started. Okay. And maybe there was property notes or something like that. That could probably live here too if we had that information. So that's a pretty good configuration. I can search for a property, I can click into a property, I can see the number of jobs and when they started. Okay. I can also pull in this to show me all of the jobs that they have. So in order to do that, we're going to create a component here. It's going to be a list. It's going to give us this sort of configuration. Okay. So we really don't want to do anything other than see the jobs, right? So what we're going to do for that is first choose the source. This is going to be the schedule. That's the jobs themselves. We want to see information about the jobs. So maybe just the, let's do the date. Okay, so we're going to see the date of the job and maybe the status. Okay, and then we may also want to sort this information. So if we go to options, let's go ahead and sort the data by the date. Get the most, the one that's closest to us. Okay. Instead of doing that, instead of the title, let's make this a little more colorful. Meta will be the date. That looks better. Okay, so now we see all the dates and their statuses here. And on this collection itself, we don't want to do anything around adding items or editing items. This is just view only, okay? So we can see that now. Now when you click into a schedule, we are going to allow them to update the status and some of the other things, so we'll get to that in a moment. So that's going to be the same thing that we do on the schedule over here. Finally, let's take away the search bar. Okay, and then let's pull in just some text or something. Let's pull in some text. And maybe this text, it would be better if it was headline text from a user perspective. Headline. Okay, I'm just dragging it in. And this is going to just say jobs. Okay, so we've got all this information. Now you could split this out by jobs that are yet to happen versus ones that have been completed. For now, we're just going to keep it simple. So we've configured this pretty well now. We're going to move over to the schedule. So first we want just a list of the jobs here. What we want to see with this is we do want to see the address, but we'd also probably like to just see the date. So I'm going to drop that into the meta field here. Let's see the date. Okay, and then again, it's not going to know automatically how we want to look at this, but we want to sort this information. So we're going to go over to the collection, and we are going to do options, and we're going to do sort by date. Okay. Here's the address where someone would be going. Okay, and so let's go ahead and click into this. And we're going to do something nice here, which is we're going to pull in a component. And the component that we're going to pull in is going to be is going to be a map of this location. Okay. So let's add a component. There is a map right here. I'm going to bring this right below the title. And we will update some of the options here. I'm going to get rid of the search bar. And you'll see that we've mapped the address to the full address that we have from our database. And so now we get a nice map here of the location that we will be going to. Fields looks pretty good. Let's take a look at everything that's mapped though. So you'll see that we've got a date, job notes, and status. One thing to know is you can move them around here, you can add items, but one thing to know is if there's no data in the field, it's not going to show up. So there's no data in job notes, even though it's mapped, it's not showing up here. Okay, but it can be edited, and we're going to allow them to edit here through this button that's showing up. Here's the thing though, to make this more user-friendly, instead of calling it edit, we're going to say update job. And we want them to be able to update two fields, the status, whether or not it's complete, and we want them to be able to update notes. Okay. And for update, let's choose a field. Let's call it this checkbox. Okay. So they're going to be clicking on this button when they want to update, and there's a bunch of fields here that we don't need them to update, so we're going to get rid of them. And you'll see that this status field is a text entry, and we don't want that because we want them to choose just from these two options, scheduled or complete. You know, what if they spelled it differently? What if they used different items? It would start to get really messy. Scheduled or complete should be the only options available in the system. Okay. Now, when you're doing this, it's important. This isn't really something that you have to worry about in the operation of the system, but when you're first building it, you do have to worry about this, which is in the data area here. Okay, let me move this around. You do want to have the values showing up in that field. So right now I only have scheduled values. I went ahead and changed one here to complete, and we can make it update. It updates about every 5 minutes on the free plan. We can make it update quicker by hitting this refresh button here. That will just allow us to tell it what the possible options are, and will make your job a lot easier. So we'll actually be able to see that update here shortly. We'll just give it a second. There. So one came through as complete, okay? So once you have that, you can properly map this, okay? Now I'm gonna show you how to do it. We're gonna get rid of the existing one because this is just a write-in field. Someone could type whatever they wanted. It's no good for us. We're getting rid of that. We're gonna choose what is a choice under edit components. This is a drop-down, okay? What you wanna tell it is where is it gonna write? In other words, what field? Well, the field is called status. Okay, it's on the schedule table, and the values are the values of status. Now remember, we have both of those values there, so now this is easy enough for it to update. Okay, so this gives us the ability to now update the system with this information. Okay, and we're just allowing them to update these two fields. Which is perfect. So this is already marked as complete as an example. You could update notes. That's what we want. Okay. So now we have the ability to update jobs from the screen. By the way, the change that we just made here where we could click into it, update the job. If we look back on the properties, you'll remember we linked to the jobs. And now when you click in, you get that same screen. So this has given us a nice continuity for the user. Okay, now we want to set up our user table, and then I'll show you what it's like to customize some of the look and feel and sort of where we're at right now. So what I like to do at this point, once I have the basic app designed, is publish. Now, for the very first time you have to publish, but moving forward, the app will sort of just publish itself at regular intervals. Go ahead and give it a publish here. Had an error the first time, I'm not sure why. There it goes. Okay, so a couple of things. It gives you this cool QR code. Someone could scan that and it would take them to where they could sign up. You can follow this link. The link is essentially your login, the portal. Here it is. Now you could visit this on your laptop or on your phone. They'll enter their email, and the configuration for some of the sign-on and privacy and all of that is the next piece of this, including how do users become users. Okay. Something very important here in the data level. If you're going to use an Airtable table as your source of truth for your users, make sure you have these 4 fields: name, email, image, and role. If you don't have at least name, email, and image, it won't let you use it as a user's table, okay? So to work on the users and authentication, we're going to click right here on the pink. And a couple of ways to do this. I like to use the pin emails from Glide. You're going to see that in action here, okay? You've also got some other information that you can set here. Sign in with Google. You can do a lot of cool stuff. But what we're going to do is we're going to say field crew is our user table, okay? And to make sure that that mapped the fields properly, what you can do is actually come over here to the layout and click on user profile. And you can see what fields it's looking at. So it hadn't mapped role, so now we'll tag it there. So we've got name, email, image, and role, which is perfect. Okay, this is also how someone could come to their profile and potentially edit it. So from a settings perspective, we've now told it how to find users, okay? And as new users sign up for the app, or as you add new users here in this table, the two will stay in sync. So that's pretty nice. Okay. The sign-in screen, you can upgrade some of this information depending on what plan you're in, and then privacy. So users in the users table can sign in. You can set it so that they have to be in the users table. That's what I'm going to do for now. You could also make it that certain email domains could log in, or that it's a public, anyone with the link can access it. So this really comes down to preference and your requirements. I already have my Simple Stack email in the user table, so we're gonna do it with that. But before we do, we're gonna change the appearance a little bit. I do like this color blue, but I would like to change the logo. So I'm gonna grab a Simple Stack logo, see how that looks. Yeah, that looks good. And some more settings on the visual. I like how that looks for now. Okay, as I mentioned, once you publish once, the default is that it will continue to publish. You can toggle this, and it would require that you publish it manually. That's totally something that you can make a decision on as your app grows. Here is some quick settings around the privacy. Okay, so let me show you the user experience. So you invite someone to your app. Here it is. Okay, they enter their email. And when they enter their email, they'll get a pin sent directly to their email from Glide. So you can grab that pin, hop back over, paste it in. That'll give you access to the app. Now what we're looking at here is not the mobile version, as you can tell. It is the web version, okay? But you can see that I can jump in, see the number of jobs, see the jobs, click in, see a map of the job, etc. Okay? So all of the information that I need is here. Okay? And that's sort of what that looks like. Now, what I'd like to show next is sort of some of the updating of the information. Okay? So let's update, if I was a user, let's say, okay, and we want to go through and sort of preview how this would look. So let's say I'm jumping into my schedule, and I need to update information for this job on the 13th today. Okay, I'm going to jump in, and let's go ahead and update this job. So this job is already complete. Let's update a different one. We'll do the 20th. Update job, job notes. Great job, completed, ready for back office review. I'm going to move it from scheduled to complete and click submit. You'll see that the status is now complete. I've got job notes here that I can reference in the future, and the back office team is in the loop. So you'll see if they were to come in and take a look at the job on the 20th, they know that it's complete, and we've got those back office or those tech notes. Okay. So this is the basics of creating a mobile ready app for field services. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. If it was, feel free to subscribe and like. And in the next session, which we will be releasing next week, we're going to look at how you can invoice, how you can create like an all jobs calendar and see how your different jobs are overlapping across your different clients, and how you can sort of get more feedback from people that are in the field on the ground doing the jobs. So that's it for now, and I will see you in the next session. Bye-bye now.